So we are here today to talk about gaming communities today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. And when we were chatting about this before today, we were like, how do we tackle such a massive topic in such a short amount of time? But I think it'd be a good place for us to start today, kind of talking about what you guys at Facebook are doing to maybe foster gaming communities in ways that people aren't familiar with. So Leo, do you want to maybe kick things off?
Yeah, sure. Short answer is we do a lot, but I'll give you the long answer and go into a little bit more detail. Our whole mission for what we're trying to do at Facebook Gaming is to build the world's gaming community. Excuse me. And we do it in a variety of ways. Part of it is our work that we do with developers and publishers and helping them figure out how do they better engage with their audiences, so facilitating the interaction between communities and the games that people are playing. Another part is building and developing technology to actually make those gameplay experiences that much better. And some other thing that we do is we also try to figure out as many ways as possible to let gamers communicate and talk to each other. So I think we have over 100 million, this is like a new stat, where we have over 100 million people who are active on a monthly basis in 340,000 gaming groups. So this is anybody from people in Singapore. I think there's like a group of 120,000 people that are in a Pokemon Go group, down to like, first-person shooter group with 12 people that might be in Sacramento, California. Like, you name it. Like, it's all over the place.
120,000. That's like so many posts.
Yes.
So many comments to regulate. I don't envy those moderators and those admins.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I mean, that's part of it as well, right? Which is we have a very significant job to do to not only empower people to both build engaging experiences and get them in front of as many people as possible, but also to be very thoughtful about how are we thinking about moderation, how are we thinking about people are interacting with each other. Of course, on our platform, people are using their real name, so that helps out a little bit. And I'm saying we don't have all the answers by any means, but I think we're using best efforts to move in the right direction and say, how do we do our best job to reduce toxicity, to improve diversity and inclusion on the platform.
No, and we were talking earlier about how fantastic I think the tools are. As somebody who runs a small business that's led by women and that creates and fosters communities, not just for female gamers, but for LGBTQ gamers,
right,
and really kind of voices that haven't found their community online before, we found great success with the What's Good Games Facebook fan page and the What's Good Games group, because we're able to really tailor that community on your platform specifically for the people we're trying to reach. So I think
awesome.
that, I mean, not to like toot your own horn here, I can toot it for you. You guys are doing a great job.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic.
Is it the word toot? Is that what made you laugh?
You really like that.
That's the funny
part? That's awesome. No, it's great to hear. It's fantastic. There's so many stories that I think are really magical to tell about that stuff. And the better job that we can do to help people find meaningful communities that they can interact with about things that they're passionate about, that's the dream, that's our mission, that's how we kind of serve the world as well as the video games industry. So that's great to hear.
It's also clear from a recent EA poll that people want clean, safe spaces to communicate. And Facebook has to fix the spaces that we have for everybody. That's what we have to do. So if we can share that with the gaming community so that everyone doesn't have to roll their own community moderation and roll their own safe spaces, that is a benefit to everybody except, according to EA, the 7% or whatever it is that wants the problem, right? So I think there's a lot Facebook can bring to the entire gaming community by doing it once and then sharing that with everybody.
It seems like such a massive problem to try to tackle, though. Like, where do you even start with something like that?
Well, and that's the point. I mean, the number of employees Facebook has working on this, the amount of AI that's being put at working at making safe spaces. No gaming company even, no publisher could afford to do that work for their subset of the game industry. So as these things get better, and this is a never-ending battle, right? This will be a never-ending improvement on things, and there will always be fringe cases that then have to be fixed. But as we do that, if we can share that with the gaming community, that helps the entire gaming community become a safer place without the redundancy of fixing those problems in each locality.
Absolutely. And I think what was interesting also about some of the discussions that we had is not just, the kinds of tools that you guys are giving content creators like me and, millions others out there, but also looking forward to the technologies that Facebook is working on for things that haven't even been problems that haven't even arisen yet, right? Looking towards like how do we use the technology that you guys are developing to create communities that maybe didn't think that they could actually have a space before.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to, build for today and then also at the same time kind of think about tomorrow. We have no like major technology announcements or anything today, I think, at least on the Facebook gaming side. But I will say it's absolutely something that, we think about and we're really passionate about. And to Jason's point, it's exactly right where, as a social media platform with 2+ billion people on it creating content every single second of every single day, we're constantly at the forefront of trying to solve these problems. So the better job that we can do to share that learning with more people, that's probably a great direction for us to go in.
And in my world, in AR, VR, we're looking ahead to the time where it's not just a text comment, it's not just some vocal comment, it's not just some combination of buttons and movements over a character virtually on space, but it's you physically in the world with somebody else, regardless of what you look like. And then you have the physical contact issues and everything else that comes in VR. And if we can get ahead of that issue and we can create the tools that help the gaming community deal with that as they move into much more co-located and larger audiences, that helps everybody. And so we are working on that.
I thought that was really fascinating when you brought that up the other day. I think it's something a lot of us who are working in the space, whether you're a game developer or you're a community person, that the AR side and the VR side is something that we don't stop to think about what that means from a community context. Can you explain a little bit about some of the things that you're looking at specifically in the VR space and some of the concerns you guys might have with how to foster communities in virtual reality specifically?
Yeah, well, the thing to remember about virtual reality is that when it works, you're there. So you feel like you're there. There are 2 demos that I have been doing since the beginning of working at Oculus. One of them is trying to get people to walk off a virtual building, and they believe they're there. They see the depth, and they can't, knowing that they're sitting on a floor and wherever they are that was there 5 minutes ago, they can't take that next step. The other one is standing across the desk from someone, handing them things virtually. And I only do this with friends, and I only do it after warning. You head straight at them. And the reaction you get from the person on the other side of the desk is the same reaction you would get in a bar or a library if you headed straight at somebody. It's a fight or flight response. And you can see their reactions, their emotions, what they do. They're there in the moment, and it doesn't matter in the case that I'm talking about. It's a floating blue head and floating blue hands. So you're already detached from you. It's not you. It doesn't look real. But the moment, the movement, everything makes it real and you're really there. So we have to ask ourselves going forward, beyond, again, verbal communication and a Call of Duty over a chat line, but beyond the Twitter feed and what someone might say to you, these are things that impact people heavily. Put them in front of somebody else anonymously, then what can happen? And we have to be ahead of that, and we have to take care with that. And so we're working on the tools to make sure that that doesn't become the cesspool it can become before we launch the products that would give the people the opportunity to do things. And what you find is, if you have the right environment, again, to the EA poll, the vast majority of people just want to be there and have fun and are incredibly respectful and incredibly nice. As soon as the wrong 7%, again, I think that's their number, are in the room, everybody has a bad time. So we have to get ahead of that stuff.
Why do you guys think it took so long for this conversation to finally happen? I mean, we've seen several different social movements over the last couple of years that have really highlighted some of the harassment that's happening, not just in the video game space, but really like in the online community space at large, worldwide. But just now it feels like we're finally ready to do something about it. Do you think that there was something maybe holding us back as an industry before, specifically for the tech space, which obviously Facebook is a leader in the video game space?
Go ahead.
You want me to take that?
So
I shipped my first game in 1985 and was working for EA in 1987. And this has been a problem that has been discussed as soon as any of the games the developers were making at the time and the publishers were releasing were multiplayer and had some sort of communication. And I didn't make multiplayer games for most of those years, so I'm going to cop out and say that I didn't actually have to deal with the problem. But what I think the game industry missed was that since the audience was generally male back then, and since the audience was more distant, didn't have as much communication with channels like Twitter to the companies, there wasn't as much feedback. I mean, we released a CD-ROM or a cartridge, you heard nothing from anybody. If you had a bug, there was no way to update it. There was no bi-directional communication. We knew the problem existed. We never dealt with it. And then it got to the point where we were making big games and we were shipping big games and there was a lot of money to be made and you had a deadline and you just didn't have the extra time and energy to fix it. It was always the thing you would fix sometime in the future. And here we are sitting 30 some odd years later in the game industry, and it's a real big problem. And somebody has to do something at some time. And the other thing that I think is changing everybody is you look at a Fortnite, and they say that 46% of the mobile audience is women. And there are certainly a much more diverse set of people in every single multiplayer application that's out there. If you don't create a safe space, you can't reach the widest possible audience. So it has now become a financial thing as well. So that may not be the rosiest of answers, but I think we've gotten to a point where it is a big problem, and it is now we have a financial need as an industry and as an individual company as we build products to think about this. And I think Facebook also has the potential to be an answer, and hopefully all those things come together.
Yeah, 100% agree. I would add that, you know, we're at a time where the world is getting smaller and people are becoming closer together. So the actual medium by which we are engaging with other people is allowing folks who didn't previously have a voice to have a voice and have a significant voice. And you can vote with your wallet, you can, you know, vote with your voice in so many different ways in order to affect positive change. And I think now is a time when people are starting to kind of be more accepted, when they can start to be a lot louder about why, you know, the industry has to be more inclusive, more diverse, more accepting of people who are different from all over the world, which is another significant component, right? Because there's 2.3 billion gamers in the world. Western world, it's about 1.6 billion people. 50% of total gamers are women. I think, you know, when you start thinking about the access that mobile gaming has provided to people and giving them a voice and actual power and a say, like all of these, I don't think it's any one thing, but I think all of these things are coming together. And also the fact that, you know, people have to wake up at some point. Might as well be now, you know, and I'm super happy for it. And I think that our industry is already better off, even though we have a long way to go.
And it isn't intractable. I mean, I would point, again, from my space, I'm focused on VR. There was a title that came out called VR Chat. And it degenerated into, I think the developer would agree, a cesspool pretty quickly. And the developer always had the interest in creating the right space. So they spent a lot of time and energy with moderation. They actually put moderators in there. They created systems. It is not a perfect space, but it is night and day from when it launched. And it was because the developer cared. You know, so kudos to them. You can make a difference.
No, absolutely, and it's really interesting hearing you guys talk about it, because I think there's this constant, you know, back and forth between creators. Well, I can just speak from my own perspective here as somebody who is fostering a community online. I obviously want that community to be as big as possible, but if that comes at the cost of having that toxicity exist within that community, you know, we at What's Good Games have decided it's far better to prune back the size of our community, to have a more wholesome community, to have people who are bringing positivity and bringing valuable conversation and discourse and are able to disagree with each other in a courteous manner, versus just having, you know, a much wider community base, which maybe looks good on, you know, a marketing slide somewhere, right, but comes at the cost of people not enjoying their space there, and maybe they're not engaging there. Maybe instead of engaging with us in a meaningful way as creators, they actually don't click on the videos, they don't read the articles, because they don't want to subject themselves to that. And what I've really loved is seeing how they're taking tools that are being made available by people like Facebook, since we're using you guys as an example, as the platform here, and being able to go, maybe that let's get all the clicks possible strategy of the past is something that should be there in the past. And look at how it's better to curate these more micro communities versus these massive communities that incite toxicity.
But in a perfect world, you shouldn't have to make that distinction. You should just be able to create safe communities. I mean, Facebook held I guess a roundtable dinner, and there were probably 20 journalists. They were all journalists, very diverse set of journalists, men, women, all sexes. It was sex, race, everything. It was very diverse. And to a person, when we asked what can Facebook do to help, what can Facebook do, to a person, every one of them had a story of abuse that had brought them to tears or otherwise like made them question whether they wanted to continue doing what they were doing. To a person that had happened in the last 6 months. It isn't about being any specific type of person. This affects everybody. And that's just wrong. We need to be able to fix that.
Yeah, no, amen. Please, let's fix it. Let's make it go away for sure. And it's when you told me that the first time, I was like, yeah, literally everybody I know has had those stories as well. So like, I think, you can only do so much to make people be the best version of themselves online. But it really comes down to the people who are empowering these people as well, and the community leaders who are saying, not telling them in the moment, hey, you know what? That's not cool here, bro. Like, if you're going to be that way, there's some other space online for you to be a troll in.
Totally. And we spend a lot of time reaching out, talking to as many people as we can, trying to figure out how do you help further build safe spaces on our platform or off of our platform. I think it's absolutely the future of community in order to define these spaces. And there's probably a space somewhere for people who are filled with hate to go hang out with themselves. But hey, they can go do that as far away from me as possible and whatever. I'd much rather be surrounded, by positive people. I like to say that, especially in the games industry, we're all, artists just trying to create something amazing. And you can't do that if you have hate in your heart or in your community or anywhere that you're surrounded by. So it's just the nature of what we need to do.
Well, I'm glad we're all on the same page here, guys.
We vehemently agree.
I did want to pivot a little bit with some of the time that we have left to talk about larger technology companies kind of entering the community space and entering the community space in video games. You were talking about who gamers are and how many billions of gamers exist around the world. But I would ask just the people in this room, how many people call themselves a gamer by show of hands? That if someone said, are you a gamer? You would say, yeah, I'm a gamer. So about like 75%, which is like pretty good for a conference about video games.
It's a game conference. Like if.
But you would think it would be 100%.
It wasn't 100%. Right? It wasn't 100%.
But when we ask that across large swaths of population, most people don't say they're gamers. And then you ask more deeply, have you played a video game? Well, I play some stuff on my mobile phone. Or, well, yes, there's a game I play, but I'm not a gamer. There's this one game that I play a lot of. And I actually own a PlayStation to do it, but I'm not a gamer. And so we need to get past that.
We need to take gamer back.
Exactly.
We need to take it back.
The term should be fine. It should be like, are you an air breather? Yes, I am. Cool. It should be totally fine to be that. It is amazing.
Yeah. No, I bring this up because, I've done talks before, whether it be at DICE or in other places, about what those communities mean and what it means to be a gamer and who is identifying as a gamer. And I'm sure we've all heard several of these because it's a super important conversation that we should be having right now. But what I think it's great about talking about building gaming communities, really the theme of GamesBeat this year, is like, what does that mean to build a new community today as a gamer? And like, how does that draw people to wanting to be part of the video games community? Because I thought one of the interesting things that we were talking about is how it's not the traditional companies that are flocking to video games. Like we all have the big publishers that we know that have been in the space for a long time. But I think even looking to people like Google and what they're doing with Stadia and how they're now getting into the video game space and probably going to be building a community at some point, I would assume. It's really fascinating hearing about tech kind of merging with video games in that way. And I think you guys have a really unique perspective on that.
Yeah, well, there are only so many hours in a day, and only so many of those that you can use for things that aren't sleeping, eating, and bodily functions and other stuff you have to do. And there's a war over that time. And I guess naively, you could have said, well, the game thing is kind of a thing, but it's not a huge thing. We're in the tech business. We have a search engine or we have a social network, and it's a different thing. It's no longer a different thing. I mean, Reed Hastings recently said that Fortnite is a big challenge for Netflix. And that's exactly right. Because if you're playing Fortnite, you're probably not watching Netflix. And the same is true if you're playing a game, you're probably not on Instagram. And so you can compete by trying to make Instagram more interesting than a game, or you could try to figure out a way to make gamers interested in doing gaming things in Instagram. Or you could take Instagram and figure out how to apply it to the game industry and actually get more gaming in there. And I'm not suggesting Instagram is headed to games, but those are the only chances to grab the hours that are being spent in games. And the exact same thing is happening with Hollywood, which is why Apple never made movies. Well, Apple's now doing video. Facebook was never doing video. Facebook's now making video. Everybody's making video because there's only so much time you can spend on your linear content. And if you're doing it on our platform, well, that's better than not doing it on our platform. So technology, gaming, Hollywood, all of this stuff is merging. And the nice thing about the technology business coming into the gaming business is that every specific game, and this has been a learning experience for me, every specific game doesn't have to have an ROI. The technology business looks at it and says, what are we building? What will it become? And will that have value? And you know, it is an incredibly potent thing for the game business to have that kind of thought process, not looking at what will this game return. If many of you pitch games, you go in and they're like, what is that going to sell? Or what's the ARPU per, like, is this going to make money? Who cares? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what will that build and will there be a value there? And if there is a value there, just do it. We'll figure out at the back end how this all pays for itself. And that, you know, it will end up for Google putting server infrastructure that OnLive and others couldn't put together. It will end up in many ways changing the game business positively because that ability to build with the expectation that we'll all figure it out. And at some time, if people are doing it, we'll figure out how to make it all make sense financially. That is a big benefit, I think, to the game industry.
Some stats to back that all up as well in terms of how ubiquitous gaming already is. On our platform alone, there are over 1.2 billion people who are either playing a Facebook connected game off of our platform or playing games on our platform. But more importantly, there are 700 million people a month who are playing games, watching games, sharing screenshots from games, talking about games, being active in gaming groups, like you name it. Like, it shouldn't be surprising, but maybe it is to this audience in the room, just exactly how many people are already there and part of this, whether they would admit it or not.
I think a lot of people that are maybe watching on stream or in this room know how big video games are because we all love making games. We love being part of this business. But I think it really comes back to this idea of community and what that means to be part of the gaming community, whether you're on the business and tech side, whether you're on the community and creator side, and how, like, where that intersection is. And what I love about, you know, what you guys are looking forward to and how the industries are merging and growing together is this idea that being a gamer and calling yourself a gamer is hopefully going to become less and less offensive over time because it's going to be, as you said, so ubiquitous that everybody games.
Like, apparently D&D is like cool now.
I mean, Critical Role
long
is
time ago,
definitely thinking it's pretty cool right
crucially,
now.
gaming time is going to become more social. That's not to say that single-player games won't forever be a very cool and awesome thing that a lot of people do. But on average, we are moving towards more social games and more time in games spent socially, not actually playing the game itself. And we've seen this in VR. We see it in Fortnite. We see it in so many places that people go in there and they're like, I don't even care if this is a 100-person shooter. That kind of is happening. I'm here to talk to somebody, and I'm going to be social. And the more of that happens, the more communities will build inside these games, and the more it becomes extremely interesting to a company with the mission of bringing people together and connecting people.
100%. I was just going to add, I may or may not watch Netflix and play Fortnite at the same time, which might be why I'm so bad at it. No, I actually don't. I'm just bad at the game. But to that point, like, the best Fortnite experience that I had last week was when I truly connected with somebody, and it was like not even about the game at all, but we were just having a really fun conversation about something that happened in a couple of previous matches that I wasn't even involved in. And like,
when you say you do those two things at the same time, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, there's an amazing, we put Dash in, I don't know how many of you are interested or have a lot of experience in VR, but while you're playing a VR game on Oculus's platform, you can bring anything in there, including video. And people are watching Netflix while they're in VR doing things, because that way they get two things for once, and their hour is being used for double the value. And in fact, one of my favorite videos and one of my favorite moments in VR so far is a guy streaming. So he's got a business doing VR streaming, and he's doing this, and he's like, hold on a second. He looks up, and his baby monitor is in VR, because we only have so many times in the day. So he's got his Nest camera or wherever the hell it was hooked up to his, and he's pulling in the stream right there, and he's doing this first-person shooter in VR and streaming two people at the same time.
Maybe taking multitasking to the max.
Can't get more than 24 hours. So if you're not part of all these things getting shoved together into your very few hours that you can play on, spending this time, if you're the thing that can't be combined with another thing, or you're going to get less and less attention.
I hit max level in Burning Crusade, rocking a baby and playing at the same time.
GG,
awesome.
man. Indeed. Well, we're just about out of time. And so I wanted to just ask either of you if you had any kind of final thoughts about, where Facebook and Facebook gaming is going as far as building communities, and anything that either of you are personally looking forward to seeing.
Sure. I think we're doing a lot of stuff right now, and there's a litany of things that I could talk about in terms of, what is this business opportunity or that business opportunity. We spend as much time as we can connecting people together. But I think the area that we're really focused on, and why we wanted to be so present today, is that it's absolutely time to make a fundamental change in this industry, where we're bringing more people in from more diverse audiences and really encouraging and engaging people in that conversation. So if we do anything this year, next year, or the year after that, if we've done a good job of moving that conversation forward, then I'll be happy.
Well, all right. I guess we're going to have to check in next year, right, Liam?
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you guys
100%.
so much for the chat today.
Thank you.
We only have maybe like a minute if anybody has a question. Did anybody? We didn't really plan for Q&A? No? Great.
Oh, come on.
Making it real easy for me.
Somebody has a question.
If you
Somebody has
do, these guys will be wandering around outside. Feel free to say hello. And thank you so much. And in just a few minutes, we'll bring up the next session. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.